or something, she hasn't, projects that she wants to do. But, she's gonna. That was
Well, it'd be nice if she went. Frequency.
I would like to solve this meeting.
Turn your microphone on, please.
What?
Turn your microphone on.
Oh, I have to do everything.
I would like to call this meeting of the Abandon Planning Commission to order at 7 o'clock. And could you do a roll call
I would be happy to. Commissioner Orsi.
here?
Commissioner Scobie, let me know she's out of town. Vice Chair Jerkowski.
Here.
Chair Slothauer.
Here.
Commissioner Norman.
Here.
Commissioner Frey.
Here.
Commissioner Starbuck.
Present.
Perfect.
Okay, did everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
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 Are there any objections or corrections?
No.
Then the minutes stand approved as written. Now we will have a public comment. And the comment will be, actually, we're changing the 3 minutes to 4 minutes unless there looks like there's gonna be overwhelming amount. So you have 4 minutes, and these are for subjects that are not on the agenda. So if you want to complain about a pothole or something like that, now's the time to do it. So are there any people, members of the public who would like to speak? Whoa.
You could do 10 minutes today.
Yeah. No, then somebody do it just so they could speak for 10 minutes. No. So we will go on to the public hearings. It is, well, 2 minutes after 7, and I declare this public hearing open at 7:02 on the 28th day of March. This is an official public hearing before the Planning Commission of the City of Bandon for a planning application number 24. Which one is this?
005.
Thank you.
Each loop.
Yeah, it's the beach loop. I just have to get the number. 2405. Excuse me, 24005. For a vacation rental dwelling on 2885 Beach Loop Drive, which is a property in the controlled development 1 zone in the city of Bandon. The applicable substantive criteria are contained in section 17.2 conditional uses in the controlled development 1 zone, 16.12 conditional uses, and 16.04.070 type 3 procedures of the Bandon Municipal Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. Please address your comments to these criteria or the criteria you believe to apply in this decision. Official notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission can consider laws, ordinances, court decisions without having them established as evidence in the hearing record. A copy of the minutes of this hearing will be available in the city offices. A copy of the rules and procedures I'm reading will be available in the city offices as part of this file. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge that it is proper for the Planning Commission to hold this hearing? Good, because I wouldn't know what to do if you did. Are there any commissioners who wish to declare ex parte contact, site visit, feel they may have a conflict of interest, bias, or other reason to be disqualified from participation in this hearing? No.
I'm sure I've gone by it, but no.
I actually went out and looked at both of them.
As did I. No conflict.
Yeah, I've been by the property thousands of times, and I actually did a site visit prior to this meeting, but no conflict or pre-prejudice.
Okay,
You should state if you gained anything from the site visit. That's the only time that you need to disclose that you have been out to the site. So if you did gain anything while you were out there that you didn't know prior to this application, that should be shared now.
did anybody gain anything?
No gain.
I gained nothing.
I gained some mileage on my car. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge any of the commission members' qualifications to participate in this hearing? Okay. We will go forward. Staff, what do you have to report?
All right, I've got a presentation that Nikki's gonna pull up. And perfect. Okay, so if you can go to the next slide. Just to tell you a little bit about this request. So this is a request for a vacation rental dwelling, which requires a conditional use permit. It's in the controlled development 1 zone. This property is right along Beach Loop Drive, so it's also located within the overlay in the CD1 zone. In general, this will apply to both applications we're going to hear tonight, but these are the first 2 vacation rentals that are going to be heard under our new vacation rental dwelling code. So you'll have noticed that the staff report has changed just minimally to address those criteria. The big ones that we usually cover in our presentation is that the saturation rate. So the saturation rate also changed. Just want to remind you all that we now include the property itself in the saturation rate, the property applying, and then we also include if there are multifamily buildings within that saturation zone. We include the number of units that are within that building. So previously we didn't include the property and we didn't include those multiple units. Now all of that is included. This property has a 21% saturation rate. They've requested eight guests and they have no direct beach access. So there was and no joint driveway. So there's no concern about having any sort of agreement for that. Sorry. Next slide. Parking is usually another one that comes up. On this one, I have the 2 different pictures, so you can always go back and forth if you're having any questions, but the garage on this building is located sort of around the back. So the cars will also be parking around the back. There's enough space for the 3 cars there. They also have a garage and then they have a full driveway leading up to that. So they'll be able to pretty easily, I think, maneuver in and out to get around. And then next slide. These are very quick presentations to just go over the staff report, which has much more detail in it. In the conditions of approval, we've also amended those to include the new code criteria that we have. The max occupancy hasn't changed, so they've requested that max occupancy of 8. They have sufficient bedrooms and parking to accommodate that request. We have the condition in there that they have to register for TOT, which is the transient occupancy payment with the city. I did get a question from a commissioner about what the process looks like after we approve something here. And so I've provided for you we call it our internal routing document. But it is the form that is used by our finance department to determine that all conditions have been met. And that they've filed for that registration. At that point, that's when they also have to hand in what's called a traveler's accommodation license. It's what they get from Coos Health and Wellness, which is an entity out of Coos County that does all of the building and health and life safety inspections prior to beginning actually operating a vacation rental. We have the opportunity during that routing process, we sign off on it. Every department signs off that they've reviewed the applicant's request. And so that's the point in time where we're looking at any of the conditions of approval and ensuring that those are met. We've gotten a little bit more explicit this time around in our conditions. And the way that we wrote the code was that you had to provide proof that you were doing certain things. So I know one of the big things that came up previously was the garbage service. So we will now require that you provide proof that you have upgraded your garbage can from the small size to the large size. So we can't do that with every vacation rental that's out there, but any new one now has a condition that they have to show that. The tsunami route maps that are posted inside of a house, that's a requirement. Those can be found in the planning department, so we generally know if people have those or not. We're also starting to disseminate some a website where you can make a tsunami evacuation route that's directly from your house. So you don't have to rely on the larger maps, but you can have one that's unique to your location. So we have recommended approval of this application. They met all of our all of the criteria in the code. And then we have attached conditions of approval that help enforce any of the code provisions that they can't prove they have at this time, but have to prove by the time they want to begin operating. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. So, we can talk about Coos County Health Department.
Sure.
So what sorts of things do they look at? Do they care if the roof's leaking or?
I did bring this document. I did not print out copies for all of you, but I'm happy to read it out loud to you, or just let you look at it afterwards. What they're looking for is like the, I don't know if I included it on this one. It's on the next one. I think the biggest thing is what they say here is they're looking to make sure that all buildings, facilities, equipment, fixtures, furnishings, and the premises of a traveler's accommodation and hostel shall be kept clean and in good repair and maintained so as to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the persons using those facilities. So it's pretty broad. This document contains some of the more specific provisions around like fire safety, water, wastewater, that sort of thing. In talking to the county about how they are enforcing this, they are also looking at deck, stairs, and surfaces. So anything that might appear to be a building code violation, they are sending someone out that does a full walkthrough of the home. And I did hear from another vacation rental operator that they did make them like upgrade, for example, a deck that was sagging. So they're I don't know to the extent that they're requiring improvements, but that's the sort of thing that they're looking at.
And that's at the expense of the owner? I assume?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. I know that they have to pay for the traveler's accommodation license. I don't know what the fee is.
Okay.
But it's a good thing I can find out.
Okay, that brings up another question. Do you get a report from the inspection?
I do not. No.
Could
and
we
it-
get a report from the inspection and make that a condition?
Well, I mean, they're required to get a traveler's accommodation license. So in order to get the license itself, they would have to have fixed anything that showed up in their in the health inspector's initial review. They'd have to fix that before they begin operating. So
Okay.
I'm not sure for us, because we've had this conversation before about how there's no one on staff that could enforce any sort of building code
So
issues.
we would just be echoing then what the county's doing.
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
why we require, before they can begin operating, we require them to submit that traveler's accommodation
All
license.
right,
That way we are ensured that they have met all of the county's building and health requirements.
all right. Just
Another question,
detailing.
sorry,
Yeah.
another question, which isn't related specifically to this application, but
Mhm.
it's more broadly. So, how many VRDs do we have currently? Approximately,
I believe it's about 70.
about 70 inside the Bandon city limit.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Yes, please. Under one of our one of our changes to the VRD code was to, I had to write it down, that the owners have no ownership, right, title, or interest in any other VRD inside abandoned. Does the planning department or the finance department validate that as part of the initial process?
That's a good question. Yeah, we have so few, or a few comparatively, like I've been through them so many times, I think I would recognize if there was a common owner. So I don't check it explicitly. It's come up before. We've had this question, I think, when we adopted the definition of owner, that sometimes it can be really challenging
Yeah.
to determine how many owners there might be in a corporation. So neither of these were an example of that. Both were just individual property owners. And so this particular property owner, this is their only vacation rental that they have.
Okay.
But it's a good question, and maybe something we could include on the application in the future, just to be sure,
Great.
as like a self-certification.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. The hearing,
Actually, I'm sorry, I do have one other question.
no, you lost it.
My time is over.
Yeah.
And I apologize, Dana, I didn't completely reread all the chapters on the VRD, but on the conditions of approval for both this VRD and the one to follow, it indicates that the name and contact information for the local management person will be provided and updated annually. Is there anywhere in the code where if that person changes, if we have a new local management person, that information is supplied right away or within a reasonable amount of time to the planning department so the host compliance software can be updated?
That is a good question. It's not a code provision, but what I found is that we require people to do it annually, I guess at a minimum might be a better way of putting it. The finance department tracks all of that with their TOT collection. We do have a change of ownership form or not change of ownership, sorry, change of property management form that we hand out to vacation rentals. So they do just sort of submit those periodically whenever they have a change in whoever is managing their property. The part that I think became interesting in our most recent addition of host compliance is that sometimes there's the property owner, sometimes there's the 24-hour local contact person, which is the one that has to respond to the host compliance stuff, and sometimes there's a property manager. So there could actually be 3 different individuals at any given time. So we try to catch all of that in that update your information form, but there's no particular requirement that says they have to do it within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
But they would be in violation of the code if they didn't respond to the host compliance or the requirement to be within a reasonable amount of time. You know, if we were contacting the wrong person.
Right. And does the host compliance software, does it have the capacity to have more than one local management person contact information?
It does. We do have a couple scenarios where we have people who are like the on-call person for the regular business hours, and then someone else who's
Okay.
listed as like the rest of the time. And that's usually with a property management company where they have employees that are happy to answer questions during the day or fix issues, and then at night, the owner of the company is the responsible party.
So it's pretty it's sophisticated enough to direct a complaint to the right person based on the time of day, it sounds like.
Yes,
Okay.
we've made that change. So far, it's only been one entity that's requested that. It may become more challenging if like everyone wanted 2 different contact people, but right now we can do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, are you sure you're done?
I'm sure now. Thank you.
Okay. Now, in the hearing is to be orderly and courteous. When it is your turn to testify, please speak clearly, state your name and address. For the minutes clerk, it is recommended that all testimony also be submitted in for writing for the record. Please print your name and mailing address on the sign-in sheet that is located on the podium. The applicant, that's you, will be granted 20 minutes. I don't think you're going to need 20 minutes. The testimony from any other people will be limited to, again, we're changing that 3 to a 4. After testimony is taken, the applicant will be given 10 minutes for rebuttal. You got do you have a half an hour? Right. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford this decision-making body and the parties involved an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the land use board in appeals case on that issue. Okay. Do you wish to make a statement?
Be more than happy
Okay.
to. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Greg Loper. My wife Emily and I are the owners of 2885 Beach Loop Drive Southwest. Dana honestly has done a tremendous job helping articulate anything that I was hoping to answer for everybody. Our primary residence is in Bend. We fell in love with Bandon many years ago when we were University of Oregon students. I'm a golf nerd at heart. She's fallen in love with it as well. We hosted family out here for Christmas. I just had a bunch of buddies out here enjoying the town as well, and our hope is to share this town with everybody else. So we understand the sensitivity associated with the vacation rentals and the criteria required to receive such permit. And really appreciate Dana and team, excuse me, for being so thoughtful and helpful as we had many questions throughout the process. So we purchased the home last May, June-ish, if I recall, and have been trying to be incredibly diligent in fulfilling all of the criteria required. And now we are here in front of everybody tonight. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And that's all I got.
Man, you didn't even come close to 20 minutes. Okay, does the public have anybody from the public? Oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody have any questions for this gentleman?
Why, thank you.
No. No.
So do you have any idea, Mr. Loper, how much time you and your family plan to use the home versus how often it's going to be rented out? Is there something in your?
We intend on being here at least once a month. So we will likely open it up otherwise to, renters, but we the one thing we miss from a previous home is access to the beach, and we are close enough that we intend on being here at least monthly.
Okay.
And both of us, both Emily and myself, work remote, so we are set up to work from here. So we will be here for an extended period of time when we are in person.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a statement on this issue?
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I saw Beth there.
Yeah, I don't think Beth has any questions. So obviously you don't need a rebuttal. Does staff have anything to add? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to close this hearing.
I'll read it. I move that the application.
You have to close the hearing.
Close the
No,
hearing.
no, close it. I need a motion to close the hearing.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
move that we close the hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
All right.
Any opposed? The hearing is closed. Now we can deliberate. Any deliberations? Can I have a motion? Now read your.
There's really no deliberation, but I would like to express my ongoing concern about the number of these VRDs that are being created here in Bandon.
Okay,
Anyone else?
motion?
I move that the application be approved with conditions and the planning commission adopt the staff report along with the proposed conditions of approval, and that staff is directed to prepare an order to this effect.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. You now have a vacation rental.
Not quite.
Yeah, they still gotta do all the
We're gonna be
stuff.
down. Staff is directed.
Well, provided they do it.
It's with conditions.
With
right?
conditions, yes.
Okay. All right, now we're going to declare a public hearing open at 7:24 on the 28th day of March. Official public hearing before the Planning Commission of the City of Bandon for planning application 24009. Just let me get that one up here on my. Come on.
It's on page 49.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I know it's a ways down.
It's okay. I'm just trying to make it
Oh, okay, thank you.
welcome.
Come on. There we go, right there. Okay. Before the Planning Commission, of the City of Bandon for planning application number 24009. A conditional use permit for a vacation rental dwelling at 375 Lincoln Avenue Southwest, which is a property in the Controlled Development 2 zone in the City of Bandon. The applicable substantive criteria are contained in section 17.24 conditional uses in the controlled development 2 zone, 16.12 conditional uses, and the 16.04.070 type 3 procedures of the Bandon Municipal Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. Please address your comments to these criteria or the criteria you believe to apply to this decision. Official notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission can consider laws, ordinances, and court decisions without having them established as evidence in the hearing record. A copy of the minutes of this hearing will be available in the city offices, and a copy of the rules and procedures I am reading will be available in the city offices as part of this file. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge whether it is proper for this Planning Commission to hold this hearing? I'm guessing no. Are there any commissioners who wish to declare an ex parte contact, site visit, feel they may have a conflict of interest, bias, or other reason to be disqualified from participation in this hearing?
I've been by it a number of times, but today I did go up on Google Street View because there were no northern views of the house in the document we got. And I wanted to confirm there was a chimney on the house, which is relevant to our discussion today.
Okay. Did it change your view of it in
No.
any way? No, okay. Sally?
I did have a site visit with no change or no takeaways.
I recall having seen this application before by by the different owner,
Oh, really?
and we had issues then
With,
with the structure.
okay. Okay, but it hasn't changed your opinion of it.
No.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge any of the commission members' qualifications to participate in this hearing? Okay. What does the staff have to report?
All right, Nikki, can you pull up the presentation? It's very similar to the last one, but I'll let it get pulled up here, and then if you could go to the next slide. Just as, I don't know why I make cover pages. I always go to the next slide. Okay, so this is another request for a vacation rental dwelling. They require a conditional use permit, so we go through the type 3 procedure. I should have mentioned during the last one, but we did follow all the proper noticing procedures, including posting that notice on site. City staff went out and did that. This application also falls under the new code, so we'll be going through that. The property had a 25% saturation rate. They've requested 9 guests, and they also have no direct beach access. Next slide. I also provided a picture of their parking, and I took an image from the Zillow ad or something like that. So you could kind of see, I was trying to match up so you could tell where the parking area was. They've got a gravelled area for parking off of 4th Street. And so in the picture, you can see the existing detached garage and then the house, and the parking is sort of in between those two. If you could go to the next slide. We did receive one public comment. There was a concern over some building safety issues, primarily the outdoor fencing. There is a fireplace inside, and there was some, I believe it was sagging deck boards. And Don is correct that previously in 2019, the city did review or approve an application for vacation rental dwelling here. And that was when I believe that they required them to fix up some of the things in the building, but that was not done and they never began operating. So I wanted to clarify again to your question about sort of what level of things are changed during the traveler's accommodation health inspector or inspection. My understanding is this is like the exact type of thing, like if there was a concern about sagging decks or rotting boards, those are the types of things that they're going to point out and require be fixed prior to it being rented out. they're looking for health and life safety issues. So it no longer falls on us to identify those things. Those will be covered in a separate phase. And by them handing in a traveler's accommodation license, that means that the county health inspector has signed off on those things. We also do require proof of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. So that is now, that's a requirement as a condition of approval that they're going to have to submit a floor plan showing the location of all of those. So if you are at all concerned about the fireplace, on the last slide, I also included a picture from the applicant's submittal that shows the fireplace, which is really decorative now. They've just got some, like a candelabra sort of thing in there. On the fencing or landscaping issue, the planning commission could add a condition of approval requiring additional landscaping. There is a code provision that says that the vacation rental has to be at or above the landscaping of the surrounding properties. This property is located on the jetty. There are not a lot of landscaped properties out there. So just wanted to put it out there that it's not like everything else around it is has very professional landscaping. I don't think that this particular site is any different than anybody else that's out there.
Raise.
Yes, Ray Sealy does have lovely landscaping. I shouldn't say that. I hope that covers your concern, but I'm also happy to answer questions or look through this guide if there are additional concerns about the interior of the building.
So just for
Oh, yeah.
clarification,
Are you done?
I don't mind I can
Okay.
just wrap up in a second. Go for it.
you can take questions.
Yeah.
Well, I like.
I
to
can take
finish
it.
And then ask
I know.
questions.
So, if I owned a lot on the South Jetty and I pitched a tent and applied to have it be a VRD, as long as the county approved it for occupancy, it's not our concern. Is that what you're basically saying?
No, I'm saying you can't pitch a tent on the jetty and call it a vacation rental. You still have to have an approved single-family detached dwelling. So it still had to initially get planning department approval from us and then building code approval in order to be a structure that can be occupied. So, I mean, they had to go through all of that process to build the house originally, and then in order to operate it as a traveler's accommodation, they do go through this inspection where they'll be required to bring any health and life safety things up to compliance. Now, previously, my understanding is they weren't doing that because I was kind of surprised when I got a call from a vacation rental operator who was asking why the health inspector was requiring building improvements. So this is a relatively new change, and it may be because the county absorbed the building department from the state. So we now have a little bit more local control here. And they have a similar concern to us that vacation rentals need to be sort of up to a higher standard to be able to rent out. So,
Well, and it's a welcome change,
Yeah.
I'd add.
Yeah.
However, I'm still a little unclear about what we get concerned about or what we don't, because there's some stuff that clearly the county is charged with doing an inspection and making sure that it's safe. And so if the fireplace doesn't work and if the chimney's falling down, I mean, whose concern is that? Is that ours or theirs?
My interpretation is that would be theirs, because that would fall under the public health department. The Coos Health and Wellness review, they're looking at those health and life safety issues.
And if the fence is falling down,
That is your concern.
Yes.
Because so it's whatever our code says you can and can't do, that's what you can and can't do. Our code does not allow us to set building or like call something a dangerous building when we don't have the qualification to be able to call it that. But our code does say that the landscaping needs to be at or above the surrounding neighborhood. So that's where the fence issue can fall to you, to the planning commission.
Got it.
Does that help?
yes.
I'm also happy to, just in general, talk to Jill at the county and get maybe a better idea of the process and report back to you about what that looks like.
That'd be great.
All right, Dana, the letter that accompanied this was the same kind of letter that we saw the first time.
Okay.
And one of her criticisms was the skunks and and their access to the crawl space underneath the house. Is that part of the county
That's,
or is that part of us?
that's a good question.
Part of the
Um,
code talks of the county, references one of their areas of inspection or vector control. So, but I don't know
Hmm.
what that means. Other
Well,
than
skunks would
inspecting
be
for-
vectors.
Skunks would be vectors.
Yeah.
So I presume that that would include an inspection or access for animals under the house or porch.
Yes,
Presume, I don't know.
that's what I was gonna say. I'm not certain. I know that when we have animal violations at just, anywhere else in town, not a vacation rental, we generally call the Coos Health and Wellness to help us deal with it. If there's anything they can do about it. So
But
we,
there's still the access the access that shouldn't be there for them to
Mhm.
get under the house, the screens and everything for the vents.
yeah, so that would be my assumption is that that's something that they would require as
Mhm.
part of their inspection.
Okay, I just trying to get this clear because
Mhm.
that was one of the issues last time.
Yeah.
You see, and I think that this is
See if
part
we
of our
can-
new challenge, right, with the
Mhm.
county now involved, taking over the building
Mm-hmm.
program, is that, uh, it would be helpful, I think, for us to know and perhaps be reminded, that we're being concerned about something that's none of our business. When we're considering.
Well,
No, that's not
yeah, I
strictly
don't
true.
agree with that.
Well, go
it's-
ahead, how's it not true?
It is our business, but we can't fix it. But what we can do is call this county and say, you guys need to get down here and either have them fix it or cite it or do something. We can't do that.
And
I
the
understand.
approval by the county isn't a condition of approval for them.
Right. Yeah,
Correct.
and so, yes, it is our concern. If we see something, we don't just let it go.
So are you saying, Bear, then, in this case, we could point out to the county before they do their little,
I don't know,
Inspection.
I don't know if we'd
Inspection?
want to
I think
point
we
out
would, yeah.
before they do their inspection,
so I don't know.
but afterward, or I don't see why we couldn't. But afterward, if there's something that we see that's wrong, like the chimney's fallen over and they missed it, we can call them and tell them, hey, you need to cite this and get it fixed. But we can't cite them
I
and tell them to
understand
get
we
it
can't
fixed.
do it, but I just wondered when in the process we should do this, and if we're aware of it before it is approved. Like before they're given the,
Staff?
Well, I'm just maybe getting a little creative here, but there is in your conditional uses, there's requiring design features which minimize environmental impacts such as noise, vibration, air pollution, glare, odor, dust. I mean, you might be able to say that there is an environmental impact of skunks getting under the house and we are going to require a design feature of putting grates in. I mean, if that was something that you felt very passionate about, I think you may be able to try to do that or talk with the applicant to see if that's something that they might willingly include in their application.
And as I understand it too, the things that we can deal with are the things that are in the requirements. Limiting the height of,
Municipal code.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Little background
municipal,
noise.
the municipal code gives if you look at the municipal code, you could interpret it as giving a large purview to the planning commission and the city council for any health and safety issues. But in this case, I believe the county
The county
is
has
a
taken.
responsible agent. I mean, along with vector control, if you read their website, they inspect things such as general sanitation, fire safety, heat and chemical and physical hazards. So based on what the county is claiming that they're doing before issuing the license, I think the areas that are brought up in the letter seem to be addressed.
are we
Right.
out of line to give them the letter?
You might want to hold off deliberation until after everyone's presented. You may get more information that
From
helps
the,
you.
from the applicants.
Yes, that
Okay.
helps you make your decision.
All right, anything else?
I'm just gonna finish my presentation.
Sorry.
Oh, I needed to finish first.
I just want to briefly touch on the conditions of approval. So we still recommended approving the application with the conditions listed in the staff report, a max occupancy of 9. Again, they'll go through that registration for TOT with us, which will trigger that whole vacation rental checklist where we're making sure that they meet all the other requirements of the code. They will be required to get a traveler's accommodation license, and we will ensure that they have the tsunami route map posted inside. Thank you.
Okay. The hearing now is to be orderly and courteous. When it is your turn to testify, please speak clearly and state your name and address for the minutes clerk. It is recommended that all testimony also be submitted in writing for the record. Please print your name and mailing address on the sign-in sheet that is located on the podium. The applicant will be granted 20 minutes. The testimony from other people will be limited to 4 minutes per person. After all testimony is taken, the applicant will be given 10 minutes for rebuttal testimony. You're speaking?
Thank you. Good evening, Sherry McGrath, P.O. Box 1548 Bandon. I'm joined, I believe, with the owners. I wasn't able to verify if they could be here. Hopefully they're on Zoom, and also Matt Winkle, who prepared the findings initially. I'd like to thank you in advance for approving the vacation rental dwelling as it meets the criteria listed for approval in the Bandon Municipal Code. The owners reviewed the proposed conditions of approval and agreed that they were reasonable and they were expected. The exterior improvements to the house require a floodplain permit application, which I believe the owner submitted. And so once that's issued, then they'll start scheduling the work. And work on the exterior includes replacing the windows. I'm sure they're going to be doing some siding repair and some paint in that process there. The exterior deck is in poor repair, so they are going to be fixing the exterior deck and removing the staircase. So it removes the liability of people coming up and down those exterior stairs. So it'll just be a second story deck, excuse me.
So the stairs are just, there's internal stairs as well, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, no, not just a porch hanging out.
Correct. They're also planning on repairing the fencing around the property. And I did want to point out that they had 2 home inspections done for the property, and mold was never brought up and it wasn't an issue for the inspectors, neither was rodent infestation. Regardless, it's in their best interest to be on top of those things. So we're adding that to the kind of let's triple check list of inspections and fixes, which would be, like you touched on, foundation screening, making sure the crawl space is closed, dealing with those issues. But as reported by the 2 experts, the home inspectors, there were no need for concern. The fireplace is not operable, so that's actually being closed off for use. They're going to leave that chimney there for now, but it will be there'll be a rain cap put on top of it, so it'll be weatherproof and it won't be in use. Let's see, kind of got off track there. Interior work is primarily cosmetic, some flooring, upgrading, paint, some things like that. But overall, the house is in really good condition for its age, especially. That was kind of what I prepared to talk about. But since we talked so much about Coos Health and Wellness and how that process works, I'd kind of like to talk about that. Over the last year and a half, our office handled over 20 permit applications for vacation rentals in the county. You saw, I think, 1 or 2 that we brought to Bandon, but most of them were in Coos County. And it's not the planning department or the building department that's involved. Coos Health and Wellness is a local arm of the Oregon Health Authority. So it doesn't go through the building department. Vacation rentals are accessory to a residential use. So the only time it would go into the building department review is if it was made in the ordinance that you were requiring it to become a commercial use. That would trigger a building permit review by the inspector. So if you were wanting to go that direction, you're not there right now because you need that by ordinance according to the building department. But what Coos Health did, Sally, I saw that. The building department only can control vacation rentals if they're classified as commercial uses. So until the ordinance says that it's a change of use to commercial, then it won't go directly to the building department. Where it goes is to Coos Health and Wellness. So what Rick Hallmark looks for is, I can ramble off the whole list, but usually he looks at first and foremost when it comes with chemicals or any kind of safety issue is how high can a toddler reach, right? So if those chemicals are on a top shelf, probably not a problem, but there'll never be chemicals underneath the kitchen counter, for example, or cleaning materials under the bathroom counter unless there's a child safety lock. Usually they're kept in a locked closet or in a garage, or the cleaners bring them back and forth. So that's what he looks at for chemical. For structural, what he's looking for at is anything that would be broken or a trip hazard or would cause harm to someone. So if there's a deck problem, that would get called out. If there's broken concrete or a broken step, that gets called out. He also looks at things like hot tubs. You know, you're not supposed to have a hot tub as a vacation rental. So that has to be locked and not allowed for people to use. That's a kind of a big one that people don't understand sometimes. The other things he looks at is, do you have the correct fire extinguisher? Because there's two different types. So oftentimes in our house, we get that small one, the 1A, and in vacation rental, you need a 2. So it's the bigger one. He looks at if any operable windows, are the screens in good repair. If there's any openings, then we have to replace the screens before you can get approval. If you have a fireplace or any kind of propane stove, cook stove, you have to have a carbon monoxide detector. You have to have fire, smoke detectors, and you guys have that on your checklist now too. So these are the types of things that he looks at, and those cover most of the issues. Oh, another one that gets missed in old homes, and we have talked about it for this one, is you have to be careful on the railing spacing on the stairs, that you don't exceed that 4-inch gap. Sometimes older homes do, so then they have to fix that before they can operate, and that's so that a child doesn't fall off the stairs and through the railing. So those are the types of things that he covers, which generally encompass the fire and life safety issues. Now, if one of those things triggers the need for a building permit, well, then we go to the building department and you have to make it right, and you have to get your permit and you have to fix it. So that's when the building department comes into play. So for example, in this case with the second floor deck, if they were to take it all down and replace it, that requires a permit. But if they repair it, then that does not technically require a building permit at this time. Hopefully I answered some of that. Also, the annual fee is $190. It changes every now and again. It did not change this year though. So once we get through the inspection process and you get your license, then that goes to the city, and then we sign up for TOT. Once all of that is satisfied, then you begin to operate. And then on an annual basis, he comes back and does an inspection. So that's where the follow through is that they are inspecting on a regular basis to make sure that things are still in good working order. I certainly hope that I addressed some of those questions. Were there any other questions that perhaps I could answer?
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody have any
But
questions?
I do have a question about the steps that are going to be removed.
Mhm.
Would they require a building permit for that?
Not to remove, not to demo, yeah. If you're demoing a building of any kind, you do need a demolition permit. And I'll confirm that actually.
Because you said that if the deck were being removed, they would have to do it.
If they were gonna remove, like in Bandon right now, I have one of these where we have an older house with a deck that's rotting. So they're taking down the whole thing and then rebuilding it. Once you're rebuilding it 100%, you fall under the building permit. If you're just repairing it, then they don't require that. So it's recommended though. For sure.
So I'm understanding you that they would come back every year. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they do an annual inspection as part of the license renewal.
The Coos County.
Coos Health and Wellness or Coos Environmental Health. Same office. They changed the name. But again, that's an arm of Oregon Health Authority. So Coos County is an interesting county because we're one of the few places that we have a code enforcement arm of Oregon Health Authority. So our vacation rentals are highly regulated in comparison to the rest of the state. And that I think is one of those kind of safeguards too. I think when we're talking about like, are they safer here than other places? Yes. unless you're, in city of Coos Bay, they did make an ordinance change that a vacation rental is a change of use to commercial. So that goes through their building department, and what that means is fire sprinklers, ADA, it triggers a lot of building upgrades, and that's hopefully not something that you guys decide to do. The owner, they do have a small family. Their goal here was to find a home abandoned. We had been looking at another property actually that fell through, and then this one came on the market. They want to spend time here with their kids and be at the beach and have family members here and build memories. That's their primary reason for buying this house. They also are a young family and they work. So realistically, they understand that, they can have an empty house part of the time, or if they can have this approval, then at least they can have some income coming in to help offset the mortgage, which seems reasonable. But when they come sometimes for a weekend, and the summer will be for longer periods of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait a minute, does anybody have any more questions for this young lady? Oh, no? Okay. Would anybody from the audience like to speak on this? Public? Anybody? Zoom? Okay. So you don't need a rebuttal.
Can I just say something?
No,
I wanted to say thanks to Sherry for explaining that, because I did not know the difference, but I also wanted to share, just because we were talking about decks and stuff, pulled up the email from when I first learned about all of these changes. And in this particular case, the health inspector who went out said that the exterior deck looked peculiar. And had to be inspected and proven to be compliant before she could begin operating. So that's where they asked the building department to come out and do an inspection. So I appreciated the clarification between who does what. And so it sounds like the building department only gets involved when there's some sort of question about whether or not something was maybe ever permitted or compliant. Also, thank you, Sherry, because you jogged my memory that they did submit a floodplain permit that we've already approved. Their request was to do up to $50,000 in changes to the property, which did include the deck that she spoke about, the windows and some siding, and I believe also replacing some of the carpeting and things inside. So it will have a little bit of a facelift prior to operation. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Well, then I am entertaining a motion to wait a minute,
Close the hearing.
close the hearing.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All opposed? Then the hearing is closed. Now we will do deliberation. Anybody have anything? The only comment I have is when they talked about smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, is I'm a huge fan of both of those. I've had friends die from carbon monoxide, and it's not nice. And I've had their lives saved by smoke detectors. So and here they're talking about, I think before they can rent it, they actually have to submit that. Is that correct?
Yes, they have to submit a plan showing where the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors are located in the house.
Now, and on those things, again, are there any rules about yearly testing? I know there's suggestions.
I mean, we don't, but I would assume that because this is also something that the Oregon
Oh,
Health
yeah.
Authority is looking
Yeah,
at,
okay.
that's something that they're checking in their annual application.
Okay.
I know recently that they have a finite life,
Oh.
and when they go bad,
Yeah,
there's no fixing them. So you have to go and get new ones.
yeah, and but the new ones, they have 10-year battery life on them.
Yeah.
And actually,
But it's the actual sensor
yeah, the
itself.
sensor gets dusty
Yeah.
and stuff, yes. And they do have a life, because I don't know, they have some radium in them or something. But yeah, I'm very big on detectors. Let's see. Do you have anything else to add?
No, you close the hearing. You're deliberating now and you can choose to make a motion if you'd like.
Motion? Anybody?
I move that the application be approved with conditions. And the planning commission adopt the staff report along with the proposed conditions of approval and any additions. And that the staff be directed to prepare an order to that effect.
Very good. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We have another vacation rental. Or will have soon.
And they do
Number
what they need.
72.
Yeah. Okay. Staff, do you have an update of the stuff you've been doing lately?
I do. So I've provided for you the planning department report, which includes our number of applications that we've received. I wanted to let you know that we are intending to roll out another new permit. We did a kind of slow rollout of our land use permits. So what we did was we created a cover page, which is just all your contact information, and then each action has its own addendum sheet. What we're also working on at the same time, because we recognize this as a need, is what we're calling our residential development permit. So it's just more specific to single family and duplex development, because that's what we see the most of. Oftentimes when we get land use applications, we get folks like Sherry who have done it a million times and it makes sense to them. But people who are usually building just a single house, this is their one touch point with the planning department. So we wanted to make sure that we're making that process a lot more clear. One of the issues that we've run into is we approve the planning permit, which we're, just looking at how tall the building is, what the setbacks are. And we sort of miss them when they're supposed to get fill and grade and public works permits if they're unaware of the way our system works. So you get a planning permit, then you go get a public works permit. At the same time, you might be getting a building permit. That's a lot of different entities and processes to understand. So we're trying to just combine the process into one application and make it a little bit more clear. So we will bring that to you when we have a final draft of it, just so that you all are aware of what changes we've been making. The other thing to note is the planning fees that I put down here are a little bit messed up. I apologize. January looks overinflated because that's the way the report came to me, but some of that money should be in March. So the total was right, but I apologize that the table came out wonky. The other thing to note in project updates is that we've been submitting a lot of grant applications. So we requested some money to do work with NOAA, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and then NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. We did apply for some funding to do the Redmond Pond pathway design. It would also look at fixing some of the drainage for the South Jetty area, which we've historically had some problems with. We will see if we get that. That's going to be a pass-through grant from DLCD. We are also still working on the beach access connector, which is the pathway along Beach Loop Drive. We're intending to apply for an Oregon Community Pathways grant up to $6 million to help in the construction of that project. That grant will come in just a little bit. We are submitting an application for a RARE AmeriCorps member, which is a resource assistance for rural environments. It's where a post-grad student from through the University of Oregon, not necessarily a graduate of, but they would be placed in our community for 11 months. We're asking for some funding from the Ford Family Foundation to help cover the cost of that. Let's see, what else? I think that might be it on this one. We also submitted a letter of support for a grant request that DLCD was putting together to develop a Coquille River Estuary Management Plan. The existing plan, I think, is kind of funny looking. It was hand typewritten and it's very hard to read. It's from 1984. It has not been updated since then. And it is a very important document for us to have. So it's how we manage the Coquille River Estuary and then how our management units are interpreted and implemented after that. We also we did get a grant previously to update our beaches and dunes overlay, which we hope to get working on soon. There's been a couple grant delays there. And then we're also looking for DLCD to help us update our shoreland overlay. So we're trying to do a lot of grant funded projects right now. On the beach access connector and the transportation system plan, we have organized a joint open house so that you can hear both of them. So previously, you might remember we did an online open house for those two projects. We had to do them separately because one was a grant funded project and one was a city funded project, and they didn't want us to combine. We didn't get great response on the online open house, which I think was pretty disappointing for us. And maybe just an interesting note that ODOT was like, we always get more feedback when we do online open houses. And I said, not in Bandon. So we are making this an in-person open house. Every location is booked, so we are going to do it at City Hall unless anything else comes up. So the idea of the open house is that the first half hour, maybe 20 minutes or half hour, is a presentation from our consultant team to let you know about the project. And then the opportunity will be there to sort of walk around station to station and learn a little bit more and provide your input. So for those of you who can't make it, it starts at 4 o'clock on April 24th. If you can't make it to the very beginning, it'll go on for 2 hours. And the idea is you just sort of come and go as you please, providing that information to us about your input. And then we also have, get it on your calendar, May 13th at 1:30 is the next joint work session with the city council to talk about that transportation system plan. So we did one a couple months ago where we sort of talked about all the background information and where we were heading. And the next meeting is going to be after we get feedback from the public. We'll be talking about those planned improvements, what's actually going to go in the plan, and then eventually into a capital improvement plan. In case you didn't know, the city council approved Gravel Point, or they denied the appeal request, and they ultimately upheld the planning commission's decision. I'm sure you all followed that closely, but I wanted to let you know. The deadline to appeal to LUBA is today, so we will probably be notified at some point, maybe next week or the week after, as to whether or not either of the entities have appealed it up to LUBA. The other thing to note is next month, there was a question that I received about how host compliance works. Because I don't want to share all of the secrets, because host compliance has a very intense back end that we could maybe give away some secrets to people about how it works. I don't want to like pull the program up and show you, but I'd like to take some screenshots and then show you what we're seeing on the back end, just so that you know what we are able to do, what we are not able to do, what information we see or not. I know that we have a lot of questions about, we get a lot of vacation rentals. We have a lot of questions about vacation rentals. So I will provide a little presentation for you on that. We think you'll also have a color palette approval for Old Town. And also the Holy Trinity Church submitted for conditional use permit for a new building. So we think that'll be on your agenda next month as long as all goes well. I think the only other thing to note is that we've been having just a little bit of trouble figuring out how to, with the clear and objective standards, process housing applications on lots that are subject to natural hazards or shoreland overlay or something like that. So I am trying to communicate with the state to get a little bit of feedback on it. As a reminder, we are required to apply only clear and objective standards, processes, et cetera, to any application that is for needed housing. The state then said all housing is needed housing, so every housing application has to be pretty much outright permitted. We do have scenarios where those fall in geologic assessment review areas, or in a shoreland overlay, it says it's a conditional use permit. Staff's looking for some guidance about how best to process those applications. So if you hear that we're being slow on any of those, it's because we're waiting for some feedback. And so I think that that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, do I understand correctly that didn't the Oregon Supreme Court basically approve beach access?
Oh,
that
good one.
municipal, yeah, thank you. Speak to that.
I have not read it fully, but I do know that they restored recreational immunity. So that did come through in the short session. So all of the worrying that we did for a few months about should we shut our beaches down or not, we don't have to worry about it anymore for now.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
the legislature that did that, or?
Yes, they made that change and that's where I'm not familiar with the bill. I haven't read it yet, but I can provide you with an update next time.
Yeah, they had something in the League of Oregon.
Yes, I will forward that to you. We did get something from the League of Oregon Cities, I believe, that that described the recreational immunity coming back.
I do have a question. I'm a little confused by something that was, and maybe this isn't the right place to ask, but, from the April survey back in 2023, the majority of respondents would like funds spent in city park instead of neighborhood parks or the Johnson Creek Greenway. But I heard something about, in the council meeting about Mary saying something about a golf course in that area
There
again?
used to be a golf. Oh.
Yeah, there was a golf course historically, if you're talking about the Johnson Creek
Right.
area, it was called Westmost. The Johnson Creek Greenway is identified as such in the Parks Master Plan. But I believe the mayor did mention at the last council meeting that there is some potential interest on her part. I don't know if it was not a council decision or anything, but to bring a golf course back.
Okay,
that.
so wouldn't there be some sort of process?
Yes.
Oh, big.
Yes, I mean, it's identified as a greenway in the Parks Master Plan, which is adopted as part of our comprehensive plan. So the council can make the decision though to modify those sorts of things.
And then there was some citywide confusion about the Park and Recreation Committee being.
Yes, the Parks and Recreation Commission is on hiatus right now. Staff requested that with concurrence from the mayor. We have very few staff people. We are a little bit resource thin right now. And they were wanting to work on some projects that require council input, such as Johnson Creek. I mean, there's clearly maybe some different ways that you could go with that particular location. That we just felt like it would be best if they didn't spin their wheels until we had better feedback for them about which direction they should be heading in.
It makes sense. Some people took that as they were like disbanding them, and I just wanted clarification for everybody's sake.
Yeah, our plan is only to put them on hiatus until we have council discussion and direction from them.
Perfect.
Yeah, otherwise staff was a little bit in the middle of this is what the commission wants, and then we haven't gotten permission from the council to go in that direction yet, so
I just thought, since there was confusion,
yes.
you'd want to clarify.
Yes, thank you. And if you are curious, we did submit a staff report to the city council at their March meeting regarding our request to put them on hiatus.
I think hiatus is an island in the South Pacific. That's where they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just didn't want any rumors continuing.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If there are no objections, I believe we will adjourn.
No, wait, I'm sorry. Final comments by the
Final-
commissioners. I have
Extra
some.
comments.
Oh, I am sorry.
Sorry.
It's right here.
It's right there. You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Dana and Chair Slothauer. I would like on the April agenda, I'd like us to open a discussion, us being the planning commission, on a portion of the municipal code, chapter 16.12.090. And it focuses on VRDs and the requirement to include or to exclude new homes for a period of 3 years from applying for VRD status. And I'd like us to discuss why we would or wouldn't expand that requirement to exclude the purchase of existing homes for a period of 3 years before they can apply for VRD status. And the reason I look at that is that my impression, and I would have to work with the finance department and probably the city manager. I have a impression that we are over supplied with VRDs in the city of Bandon, and I see a lot of them that are vacant or apparently vacant for a good portion of each month. I'd like to see what the average amount of time rented for each VRD is and how much actual money each VRD brings in. Because I have a suspicion that if we were to exclude both new home and sale of existing homes for a period of 3 years, I think the impact on the TOT would be 0. I don't think the city's going to lose any money at all. And I believe it would help the housing situation. I think anytime you have a house on the market or build a house, you stand a chance of improving our housing situation for people that want to live and work here in the city on a permanent basis. So I'd like to discuss that further next month. Give everybody a chance to think about that.
So where would we put that on our agenda?
We will just put it on the
No,
agenda.
but I mean,
We,
which,
we usually include it under a work session item if we're gonna do a discussion that's just sort of a general non-hearing item. So we can put that on there
okay,
if the chair concurs.
The chair concurs. I hadn't thought of that. It's an interesting idea.
agreed.
Okay, and I heard you wanted maybe some information about average time rented and how much each one brings in annually and.
Right, and I don't know if if it's appropriate for me to contact the city manager or the finance manager. I would certainly be willing to sign any confidentiality agreements and provide some time if they need some people hours to concatenate data.
Well, I appreciate that. I think we might be able to pull it like an aggregate, so we wouldn't have the particular like number of days or how much money is collected assigned to any address. We can probably just pull that data and sort of get it to you like, do you think that would be acceptable? Like each individual one, but not associated with an address?
I don't think we need addresses.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just more interested in if we have 69 or 70 VRDs over the last year for each one of those, how often is it rented and what the income for the year is.
I think Nikki and I can request, make a request to the finance department, get us that information and then we can get it out to you prior to your meetings.
I'll let Paula know I'm more than happy with
I
my
will.
background to provide some help if she needs it, if that's appropriate, and if there's a confidentiality agreement that needs to be signed, that's not a problem from my end, okay?
Yeah, that's,
All right.
I appreciate that. That's very nice. of
Thank you.
Thank you.
72 now.
72. I won't count those.
Just saying. Um, So I don't know if we've mentioned, anybody's mentioned this before, but there is a film called An Oregon Story, which came out in January and is produced by the Parkdale Valley Land Trust. And it's about 90 minutes and it's about the LCDC and its creation and all of the battles that have gone on in order to maintain its survival, because there's been a lot of political blowback about it over the years. And I found it to be a really, really good film and would highly recommend it if you've got 90 minutes to kill.
We are organizing a screening of it in July in Bandon.
Okay,
So you read my mind. Nikki and I went and saw it at the Egyptian Theater in Coos Bay and it was so good.
yes, I agree.
I'm glad you liked it.
And you can, if you don't want to wait till July, you can just Google an Oregon Story and that'll come up. And related to this, if you have an interest, there's also another film, which is only about 30 minutes. And it's about the beach bill. And this was a show through Oregon Experience, OPB's program, the Oregon Experience. And it talks all about how it is that just how Oregon attempted to keep their beaches open. And both of these films have one of my favorite Oregon historical characters, Tom McCall, Governor Tom McCall, as sort of the main character in both of those films. So highly recommend both of them if you don't want to wait till July.
I was gonna say it'll be mandatory for all of you to attend, so if you don't want to watch it twice. No, but I hadn't heard about the Beach Bill one. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure, that was, it's an older film. It's like from 2007, but it's still really good.
That's great. Thank you.
Now, what did you want to discuss, Mr. Chair?
I want to discuss a glass of whiskey at home.
Oh,
No. Anybody have anything else? No.
Nothing further.
Okay, now can I adjourn? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.